Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm very excited for today's show. I have Tim Berney here, and he is the founder and CEO of VI Marketing and Branding, a nationally recognized agency focused on marketing that actually drives behavior change. Over more than 3 decades, he's grown the company from a 1,300 startup into a multi-million-dollar firm working across healthcare, public health, travel, and commercial sectors. His work is centered on helping organizations move beyond awareness to influence real decisions with an emphasis on trust and human-centered strategy, especially in categories where the stakes are high and credibility matters. And he's a frequent contributor to leading business and marketing publications and is known for his perspective on leadership, brand credibility, and how AI is reshaping the industry. So welcome, Tim. It is so good to have you.
Thank you, Carly. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And I'm curious, before we even get started diving into the business, just a bit of understanding of what behavior change marketing is. So for people who haven't heard of it.
Sure. Some people might recognize the former term, which was social marketing, which is a science, part art, part science. Social media took that term from us, and so we pivoted to behavior change marketing. But behavior change marketing is a science. It is not that we are just trying to get people to buy something, if you will. We're trying to actually change the behaviors of society, change behavioral norms. And so the major steps to that are we bring attention or awareness to an industry or to an issue, rather, and then we begin to change attitudes about that particular issue, and then we change behaviors associated with that, and then eventually the goal is to change social norms. So, the easiest way to sort of get in touch with that is to, if you're old enough to remember when we didn't wear seatbelts, and now you not only wouldn't get in a car and not put on your seatbelt, but you almost can't, because the social norm is for the car to close and the belt to come across your lap, and that's been reinforced by ticketing and all those types of things. But when I grew up, we just crawled around the car and paid no attention to seatbelts. So that's an easy way, but we apply this to many industries. Certainly highway safety, but also fitness and nutrition, certainly smoking and tobacco use, energy conservation and water conservation. And then now we are starting to apply it in just the consumer marketing world as well. So you might think autonomous vehicles, you might just think EVs as a whole, but with the rapidly changing world that we're in, there's a lot of opportunities for us to shape social norms.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So
I'm curious as well, because I feel like you've very beautifully simplified a very complicated process. Do you have an example of something that you've done for a client where you have shifted that dynamic of a social norm and what that actually looks like on the back end?
Sure. We've done a lot of those. The very first one we did was recycling, but I think that one that most people can relate to would be in water conservation. So I had a client for 13 years in the upper Midwest, and we helped them during one season as a community save 7.5 billion gallons of water over the previous year. That's billion with a B, for community. And again, if you just want to follow those certain steps, it is bringing awareness to an issue. So that we've all seen, like, don't run the water while you're brushing your teeth. Don't fill a dishwasher halfway full. Wash a whole load. But it's also things like, what types of plants do you put in your flower bed that require less irrigation? Making sure that your sprinkler isn't watering the sidewalk or the street. and that it's run at the right uh, time of day. Don't run the shower for 5 minutes, letting it warm up. And if you do, perhaps you can capture some of that water to water your house plants and things like that. So it is really um, a lot of simple things
Mhm.
that you and I both know, Carly, but we don't really think that we can make an impact. But until we really see the aggregate of that, and maybe it is demonstrated for us, that we actually can truly make a difference. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things, tenements about social marketing or about behavior change marketing is we want to model the behavior that we want to see. But
Yeah.
just say it, not just communicate, but actually model that behavior. So a lot of what we do is showing. Even when we're talking about like motorcycle safety, we use graphics and CG and all that to go, this is how you drive when there's a motorcycle around.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious too, because and you can let the listeners know how long the company's been around because it's been a really long time. But have you started with behavior change marketing, or did that sort of develop over time?
Yeah. So this is our 37th year of business. We were founded in 1989. Um, Very early on, we introduced a very successful recycling campaign for a community that had just adopted it. And then got into some energy conservation for the same municipality. And we didn't know really, we didn't know the term social marketing. This is early 90s. Um, we we sort of did know that we were trying to change behaviors, um, but we weren't masters at the craft like we are today. So it was sort of like we happened into it and
Hmm.
then really sort of fell in love with it, uh, and then have pursued that business. Um, One of that very first campaign, that recycling campaign, um, we were always sort of data driven and trying to do primary and secondary research. And one of the insights that came about from that was that, especially with recycling, that it was a lot of times more upward pressure at a
Hmm.
household than downward pressure. So meaning the kids would learn about it in school, or the kids would adopt it like, hey, this is bad for the environment, or hey, the ducks, bills get caught. Things like that appeal to kids, and they're the ones that put upward pressure on the household that said, we need to, no, don't throw that away, throw that in that blue thing,
Hmm.
uh, or whatever. And so our very first campaign had an element of that was not just communicating with adults, but that was intended to appeal um, to tweens and teens for that upward pressure. And it turns out that, at least at the time, been in business 37 years, at least at the time, this was the actually most successful um, recycling introduction in the United States in terms of the percentage of households that participated. Um, so, it's sort of fundamental marketing, but it's fundamental marketing from a certain perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very, very cool. I'm curious to like what would you say, like what's your team look like present day? How many individuals do you have at the company?
About 65, I think,
Hmm.
is the number today. Um, our company is larger in terms of income today than it's ever been. It's not larger than it's ever been in employee count. Eventually, you figure out how to do things a little bit better and a little bit more efficiently. But the interesting thing is that everybody in our company goes through behavior change certification.
Hmm.
And this is actually something that we developed, that the people that are I would say the most subject matter experts at BI, developed behavior change certification. And so if you're going to work at BI, even if you don't work on behavior change clients every day, you have to pass this certification.
Hmm.
And we actually have clients in behavior change that now use this internally at their own shop too. Um, it's not the most difficult thing in the world. It's not like a doctorate course. Um, but it does teach you the fundamentals, and some of the things that we're discussing today are all sort of part of that. So it is part of our culture, part of our DNA. That this is where we focus. This is what we do, and you need to be good at it here.
Yeah. When did you decide to actually create this course?
Um, so we work in tobacco cessation, tobacco control, and have for almost 20 years. We've worked in water and energy conservation a little bit longer than that. And those, at some point in time, you sort of realize we can apply this over here and this over here, and you go to conferences, and then you get asked to speak or present case studies here and there, and you get recognized, and sort of just like, oh, this is really what we're good at. We're gaining a reputation in this. This is what we need to concentrate on, because every agency
Mhm.
needs to have some sort of area of expertise, and not always in a vertical, but usually in a vertical. And and so when you sort of think of well, how do you market yourself? Well, if we come up with this behavior change certification, and it's not difficult to pass, and you have to pass it in order to work it, yeah, that becomes sort of a marketing tool for us,
Mhm.
because we're talking about it right now. But it also becomes a sort of a brand position for us, too. So we developed that a dozen years ago, I'm going to
Mhm.
say, when we sort of decided to go all in on behavior change.
That's very cool. I like that. I want to take the course. It
We'll
sounds
get you
so
along.
exciting. Honestly, it really sounds fun. Genuinely. Yeah. And then what about your core leadership team? What is your core leadership team made up of?
So, my title is CEO, and our president and our vice president of strategic marketing, and then now our CFO. That makes up the what we call the leadership team. That's the core leadership team, and then we have about 10 directors,
Mm.
and those directors lead either a department or a major discipline, like paid media or digital media, or a couple creative directors, HR director, director of strategy, things like that. And those are um, people that we have actually asked to help us run the agency today.
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot more complicated. Nobody really can know everything about marketing or be great at everything that we have to do. And so those people are responsible for their staff, for the development of their staff, for communication on priorities with that staff. And then we do a lot of training, internal
Mhm.
training, and a lot of culture driven things that these people also basically plan and run. And they have KPIs that they are to hit for their department or their area of expertise, and their staff does too. Um, so that it's not just like, hey, you're doing pretty well, good job, here's a pat on the back and a raise. We want to give people objectives to try to hit, because it makes our clients more successful.
Yeah, I'm curious as well when you say you have like an internal structure for the culture to train people, but also enhance it. What does that look like?
So we have a handful of committees, I say sheepishly, and there is a culture committee. Um, but so we've always put emphasis on culture, but because COVID and post-COVID, we have so many remote employees, like a dozen or 14 or so of our staff members live out of market, out of state. And um, but you can't have a remote culture and an in-person culture. It has to be one. And so it's gotten much harder. And so we've actually had to be more intentional about it, more intentional about when we ask people to to come to Oklahoma City, which is where our headquarters are. But we plan. There's a calendar. There's an annual calendar. So every Wednesday, 52 Wednesdays a year, I'd say 45 Wednesdays a year, we have what we call food for thought. It's a lunch and learn, but it's basically, I'll buy you lunch if you come learn with me or share some thought with me or whatever it is. And so we might talk, train on something as broad as storytelling one week, or something as specific as the changes to the Instagram algorithm and how we need to adjust our business in order to go forward. So it is just learning, and we try to make it fun, but that part of our culture is you're always going to learn.
Mhm.
And I feel like if I have 65 employees and I do this 45 times a year, I don't know the math on that, but there's like 2,700 lessons have been taught. And if I've been doing this for 20 years, which I think it's been longer than that, 27 times 20, that's 54,000 lessons
Wow.
that we have been able to teach. And there's this saying that we have, it's better to train somebody and have them leave you than not train them and they stay.
Yeah.
And so if our job is to be ahead, which I think it is as an agency, but certainly never to be behind, but always being on the front edge of things and pushing our clients and being a marketing leader, then we have to have this type of culture. I think where we're curious and we're thirsty to learn. And for the few that aren't, well, we're shoving it down your throat 45 times. And maybe something good will come of it.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum.
But we do with like this Thursday, in about 5 minutes from now, people are going to start gathering in people that are in office in our large conference room, and we're going to have a Thursday announcement. So we're going to update everybody on what's going on. We're going to celebrate probably a couple anniversaries or a couple birthdays. We might celebrate a wedding shower or a baby shower. Somebody's going to get called out for living up to one of our core values. And their face a slide and all that. We usually end it with what we call wheel of names, and somebody's name is going to get knocked off the wheel, and whenever that's over in several months, somebody's going to win a. So it is a communication, because people say they want more communication always, no matter how much we do it. And we also going to put out the same information, maybe a little bit more, in what we call the F word that goes out on Mondays. It's called the F word because our president used to be our marketing director, and she has a potty mouth, and so it's just called that.
That's funny.
We introduced it softly, like it was like there was a different F word every week, like fun or whatever. Now it's just
It is what it is. Yeah.
But so all of those things, sometimes there's a mutual benefit or double benefit. Support the culture it is that we're trying to drive. And that, I'll be honest, I get to, or have to, however you want to look at it, come to work every day. And I want this to be a place where I like to come to work. And so that's what we're trying to do with our culture. We call it work hard, play hard, but it's intense when it's intense. And then we try to blow off steam and make it fun when we can, and not try to take ourselves too seriously. And certainly make sure that people go to their kids' play or their ball game or whatever happens during the middle of the day, and all that.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious stuff, but some people pay it lip service, and we really try to pour into it, because it's cheaper to retain people than it is to recruit and hire and train people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have it really well integrated into the system and just coming up with new ideas and People are having fun with it, which is important.
Yeah. And, I mean,
Mhm.
there's more ideas than there is ability. Sometimes you have to be like, hey, culture committee, we're trying to make a buck here too. So
Yeah.
don't take all my staff out of the office for half a day, please.
That's awesome. You're like, this sounds amazing. And we can't do this every week.
Right. Right.
Uh, and what about with your directors as well? Because I know that you guys do retreats, and I'm curious what you guys actually do on those retreats. What does the schedule actually look like?
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, I don't plan them, but attend them. So they're usually a day and a half. And that first half a day might be in something fun or whatever, but certainly it's going to start with a meal together in the early evening, and then that could go on into the evenings. These are maybe half the time offsite, meaning really actually out of market, and half the time on site. So, we might go to a resort at a lake a couple hours away or something. Uh, Sometimes we invite spouses, and sometimes we don't. If it's local, we don't. The role the objective of this is um it's communication, but a lot of times it's like, hey, we have this issue or we have this big pivot and we need to basically figure this out together. So we changed, I guess it was in at the beginning of January, we changed part of our review process. And so we needed all the directors to know sort of what the intention was and what we were trying to achieve. And they all had sort of some homework leading up to that. And and then we worked through that uh, for about 3 hours, 2.5 or 3 hours at that retreat. Um, and we shot holes in it. It was like, this part of this is, not planned very well or not thought through well enough. And and this is how I am doing these reviews. And this is how I'm doing them. And they got to be the same. I mean, there needs to be equity in how we're doing that if we're introducing something new. So we work through that. We do um something at our quarterly agency meetings, but we always do it without fail with our directors, and that is some sort of confidential, what we call forum exercises, and that is basically to build trust and
Hmm.
vulnerability, so that we are not just dealing with each other from a totally on paper business standpoint. Um, we might do that as sort of an icebreaker at the beginning, and we almost always do an icebreaker. But a lot of times it's around the middle of it, um, and we break off into a couple groups, or we might do it as one group of a dozen or whatever, and we ask a really difficult question that people have to ponder, and people have to sort of open themselves up. Like, the one that I remember the most is, uh, we started this. I started it because I knew the question first. I answered it first, but it was, what's the most difficult thing you've ever done
Hmm.
or had to do?
Yeah.
Mine was telling my um, son that his mom and I were getting separated. And
Same.
uh, and I think there was a follow-up question that maybe brought it home to business a little bit more. But it got me a little bit choked up. and we go around the room, and everybody like sort of went all in on it. And all but one person got choked up during their, and that wasn't the point. The point was, hey, I was trying to make everybody cry or whatever. But it was, let's go deeper, so that when we're having conversations, then I know you're vulnerable, I'm vulnerable, and then we have this trust.
Hmm.
Um, and that was, I don't know if it was the best retreat we ever had, but that was the best session. Nobody has ever forgotten that. It comes up It comes up all the time. So we do these things to bring us to align us more as a team, so that we can work through these very difficult issues.
Mhm.
Because I mean, if everybody's going to agree, we don't all need to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
but we need to disagree in a manner that is respectful and it shows empathy or some sort of insight into the other person's perspective. Um, so in essence, we're working through issues that are plaguing the agency or that are around the corner or, or the industry is experiencing. We just do it in a really deliberate, thoughtful, planned out manner that's not just talking.
Mhm.
There's a lot of exercises. There's a lot of, if I asked you this, what would you say? But if I asked you this way, what would you say?
Mhm. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious as well because, like what you've shared with between the meetings, between the culture, um, it's all very thoughtfully crafted in a sense that it's also very strategic. It's also, I mean, it's a huge part of the operations. When would you say that you started to realize that putting things in place like this was important? At what stage of the business? Because you've obviously been building and growing and refining this for quite some time.
Yeah. Um, I will say for a long time, we sort of like did this and did that.
Hmm.
This seems like a good idea, and this seems like a good idea, or whatever. Um, but when we came out of COVID, um, I had the opportunity to um, change the leadership team or disrupt the leadership team, if you will. And um, and so our president has driven a lot of this. Our director of strategic marketing has driven some of it as well. And I will say, I don't know if this matters or not, but they're both female.
Hmm.
And so maybe there's a little bit different perspective. I don't think we should hide behind um, genders in management. Then we named uh, after that, sometime after that, a year or two, a couple senior directors, and they really embraced like what it was that we did at the leadership level and sort of elevated it. So much so that we asked them to plan our quarterly agency meetings. It's like you really have a feel for what it is that we're trying to do. You have a creative thought process about it. You're bringing a new perspective about it. Can you all take over the planning of these quarterly agency meetings? And they did. And two plus. I can't always say everything led up to something, but I will say that we're a top workplace in Oklahoma, and we have been for 4 years. And I think a lot of this has to do with with our new approach, post-COVID approach, and bringing not just having the leadership team do it, even though we don't view ourselves really different than anybody else, other people do view us in
Hmm.
such a manner. So when we bring other, the next level into it, I think it makes it more human and that you get more buy-in. Um, we're not a big company, but still, I'm sure there's people that think that some of us sit in an ivory tower and whatever, as much as we do to try to, you know, I empty the dishwasher every Friday in the kitchen.
That's fair. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I'm curious as well because as things have shifted, what would you say your role looks like today?
My role, um, it's, I'm going to give you two answers. So my role is twofold. It is to have a vision for the company, which I do, because I feel like that I have sort of a vision for the industry, which um, maybe I can, because I've been around so long, see that a little bit more clearly than other people. So it's to set that and make sure that we're pursuing the right things, the right tactics, the right technology, the right client mix, the right type of talent, or whatever. So Um, um, that's my role, and I do that in a intentional manner, but it's come somewhat natural to me because of my experience. But the industry has shifted so much from a lot of agency of record in our business. You used to, like, somebody would hire you and you got all the budget, and and it was yours to do with what you recommended, and they approved, and until you were no longer agency of record, they hired a new one. Today, there's much less of that, and you get a lot of project work. And you might have ongoing clients where you only do a few tactics for, like you might only handle website SEO and paid search or something like that, or you might only be get the branding part of it, and, or whatever. And then, so you don't get all of the budget. I mean, just to be frank, from a business perspective. So you have to have more clients in order to keep your income up, or your revenue up. Um, and 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 then you chase project work, even if it's big projects or whatever. Nobody can sell our company to prospects better than I can. So
Mhm.
so that has become a significant part of my role today. And the president and a couple VPs sort of running operations, running the day to day. I'm in meetings and stuff like that. I have an opinion and whatever, but my priority is supposed to be, we've all agreed, and it is biz dev. So I've spent about half of my time in a initial prospect meeting, or finalizing a proposal, or working on a pitch, or anything in between.
Mhm.
We have a biz dev person that opens a lot of doors, sets appointments, um, makes those connections, but nobody knows our talent, nobody, and what we're doing, and can speak sort of marketing off the cuff better than the old guy.
That's
So
awesome.
so that's, you know,
That's
that's
what you get to
a
do.
lot of what I do. Yeah. But I mean, I have a tremendous amount of faith and trust in the other people that are leading the company. So it makes it much easier for me to do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious as well because, as you spoke, you said there's a vision for the company and also the industry, and I would love to know what that is.
Wouldn't we all? Um, so um, I sort of talked a little bit about it relative to the fact that we don't get some of everybody's budget now, or whatever. And so, there's a lot of reasons for that. And some of that is because, oh, well, people are doing their own social community management, and everybody has at least one designer in house, or whatever. But as we've added complexity to the marketing industry, so channels of communication, and another way to say it is tactics, um, uh, brands have hired specialists. So, all these people do is paid search in the medical industry, and so that's who we want. We still need you to do our brand work, or whatever. Um, so we've splintered um, things, if you will. Um, I know that a lot of people want us to talk about AI today and its impact on the industry, and there is an impact, um, but we're not really there with this, huge shift yet. So there's plenty of us, if you will, who are trying to get ahead of that. And, like, do we develop tools, or do we have this positioning where we're AI driven, and whatever that does? Or the reality is, there's a lot of things we can do with AI, with, like we're doing some production work, and yeah, we can take static photos and make them move. And so we're doing things like that. Um, you can do some initial research that might have used to take you 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever, and you can do it in an hour, and it's secondary research. Um, Definitely SEO has been influenced because uh, search engines have what we call generative in, optimization, whatever, GEO, and and so and those algorithms are different, and so that makes sort of PR come back into play because it's news articles and things like that GEO is um, crawling versus just websites. And PR was kind of like, I don't want to say fading, or if PR was evolving. A lot of PR firms were evolving into more ad agencies. Those lines were getting very gray. This sort of is maybe an opportunity for PR firms that a lot of them don't even realize. I don't know. I have to worry about us. So so AI is definitely influencing the industry, but it's influencing the whole world and everybody's industry. And is there somebody in my space doing something great with AI? I'm certain, absolutely. But we're a ways away from where it really becomes sort of a norm for us, and it really totally um, impacts the industry in such a manner that it's like pre-web, post-web, and it's that big, but it's just not quite there yet. I had another thought. Uh, I'll come back to it, but
Okay.
so people want us to like talk about AI. AI is impacting everything, and it's impacting everything a little bit, and I don't know how much a lot of bit just yet. So we're fully aware of it. I know what I was going to say, and that is talent recruitment. So the type of talent that we need in an agency today or tomorrow anyway is different than what we needed yesterday. And so you need your strategic people a whole lot. Marketing strategy people, that's creative strategy and digital strategy and data analysts and data strategists and things like that. Very, very important people. Clients, we fear, and we've seen some of this, want AI to make their invoices go down. Like, oh, you use an AI, so I should be paying you less or whatever. But the fact of the matter is we're not doing any less work for any particular client. The work just is better. Like we're doing some of the things that before we just never could get to because we're letting that happen. The other side of things is that talent's getting more expensive for us.
Yeah.
And so there's this push-pull. Oh, things should be getting cheaper from my agency, but the agency's labor costs are going up.
Yeah.
And so just discussing this, I think, means that we're starting to figure it out, but we're not really figuring it out.
Yeah.
Something has to give.
That's
I
interesting.
don't know.
Well,
I can't. I'm sorry. That was very long to what's happening with the vision in the industry.
hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company.
That's how my head works.
It's interesting though, because it's not something people often talk about where, everyone's talking about like how you can save money and have like less employees as a result of AI. But what you're saying is you also have to hire, this a different type of talent to be able to manage all the different complexities, and that also costs more. So it's kind of balancing itself out a little bit.
It does. I'm not so sure it's even going to balance. I mean, we're not at this level by any means, but I mean, you saw that, Meta hired, whomever and paid them $25 million hiring bonuses to come over because they were AI expert. You know,
Yeah. Spending a lot on AI to spend less on employees, but we're still spending more on these
yeah,
technologically sort of savvy individuals.
you know,
Yeah.
this is not me discounting anybody at my shop that is not a strategist or whatever, because I wouldn't employ anybody that I didn't need
Yeah.
today. But it's, if we're talking about the future or the evolution, that's where I see it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm curious as well too, because you guys are in a very creative industry as well. When you think about measuring creative work, what does that look like on the back end?
So we need to get over ourselves for a second and realize that we're nothing if we're not driving results for our clients. I don't care how many awards that we win or somebody else, whatever. If we're not driving results for our clients, then we shouldn't have a job.
Hmm.
We believe, we put a great emphasis on creative work. We believe that great creative that stands out and that motivates people to do something drives results. And I got 1,000 case studies to prove it. Now, somebody may say, well, if everything else was good and your creative was just okay, then you probably would have driven the same results. Disagree, because been there and done that too. So I I I I I cannot see a world where great creative, meaning creative that makes Carly go, I want to watch this whole thing. I want to see that whole thing. I remember that. I think differently about that brand, even if it's subconscious. I now prefer that brand over other brands in the marketplace. There's no substitute for that. There's no media buy, and there's no strategy, overall marketing strategy that can substitute for great creative that resonates with you and you remember and motivates you to do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it only like creative, like, oh, only, artsy people or great copy people can do it. It's got to be strategic because you do have an end game in mind. But I mean, and you and I see AI driven creative all the time on social media channels
Hate
or
it.
or
I'm not
whatever.
into it. I
But
know everyone loves it. I'm really not into it.
yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
I can't remember anything that I was like, oh my gosh, that's the future.
Yeah.
I remember stuff was like, oh, that's getting more authentic or more realistic or whatever.
Yeah. Well, this is where I definitely I'll probably date myself forever, but I grew up in the time where, I loved fashion and it was, the 90s and all these different things happening that really changed the dynamic of how things are advertised today, how we view fashion today. And all of it was just concrete and real. And I loved it. And, I absolutely loved it. It's so fun. And it's that marketing and branding dynamic that, certain campaigns like changed how we view things, but that's what they wanted because they were trying to reach different people in like a different way and give us what we wanted. But it all came from connecting like with real people and these like real experiences. And yeah, so
Yeah,
I have
right
I have
on.
a hard time with the
Right
AI
on.
stuff. I think
I
I'll
don't
be
know
dated with
if
it.
Benetton might predate you, but I mean, I feel like the Benetton was
Yeah.
like first brand or one of the first brands that tapped into that.
Yeah, they did good. Calvin Klein did good too when they started promoting their jeans and stuff differently. That was a huge transition.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
controversial.
very.
Print
Yeah.
shield.
Yes, yes, all that fun stuff. It's very cool. It's very cool. Brands have the power to really drive a lot of change in our world. So it's
Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah.
fashion and music, I think, are just two
Yeah.
mainstays of pop culture that marketers probably don't use enough. Uh,
Yes. I got to see Peter from Peter, Paul and Mary.
yeah,
He did like this jam set one time. It was amazing. It was such a small group of people. I feel really lucky to be there. But it was really fun just listening to him jam out with some friends and talk about music. And he was generally at a time where music change the world. And I agree. I think people don't use music to the degree that they used to. And with all the political stuff, I was like, maybe we'll get some like great music out of it again. And I was like, where is it? I haven't got it yet. Like, oh, I was like,
I
where's
have a
all
million
my
jingles running around in
cool
my head.
stuff?
One of them is for
Yeah.
a mayoral campaign.
Yeah. You should go
Uh,
for it. I'm craving it.
not my own.
Yeah.
This guy would be embarrassed if I
Oh, I don't know. I was craving it. I was like, where's my new Janis Joplin and Neil Diamonds? And where are these people?
yeah,
I didn't get him, but yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting what drives it. So I'm curious too, because you've been doing this for so long. You've had this business for quite a long time. Do you ever think about succession planning and what happens to the business in the future?
I do. And I think a lot more about it today than I did even a couple years ago. So, 4 years ago, I bought out my partner, and I raised private funds to do so, um, and that I'm at the end of all of that now in terms of paying it all off. And one of the things that we do have going for us is this behavior change expertise, and it's not a claim. I mean, our people are invited to speak at public conferences all the time. And it is a niche, and it's not a niche that everybody knows, and therefore there's not as much competition as if I was a consumer packaged goods expert or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so I do think that at some point in time, we're an acquisition target. Today, I'm more on the other side of that. I'm more on the acquiring, um, and in more of maybe niche tactics, if you will, something that we're not as good at, or something that we see coming around the corner that we need to acquire, or whatever, and build us up to a larger company, so we're even a more attractive target.
Hmm.
Um, I have three kids. I have three grown boys, and I didn't encourage any of them to get into the business, and none of them are. Um, I do have very capable group of next level leaders, um, that might one way or another be interested. Um, and then there's obviously private equity, and
Hmm.
I think about half the deals, I can't remember the number I just read, in our industry, M&A activity is driven by private equity. Um, I don't know that that's for me. Um, I just really enjoy the business. And if at some point in time it just comes down to numbers, um, the joy will probably go away, for me. And
Yeah.
so I might not be long for it. Um, but you do want your business to survive, because, we have 65 or whatever employees, and I feel responsible for those people, and I feel responsible for their home mortgages and their kids' education and those types of things too. So um, whatever we do, whenever we do it, it would be done with everybody's best interest in mind.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that is, just to be frank.
Not yet. Yeah, that's fair. I'm curious as well, because even when you think about the acquisitions, what companies do you think you would want to acquire to help you guys expand?
So um, I don't look at it today as much as being in a certain geographic area. We're 200 miles from Dallas, Texas, top five city, a lot of headquarters there, whatever. It might behoove us to be there. We don't have to necessarily be there if we have expertise in something that somebody is interested in. It might be a little easier. You might be a little bit more well received, or whatever. Um, but I used to sort of think in terms of just geography. Maybe I
Mhm.
get a little office in New York or San Francisco, or whatever, and partner up with somebody. Maybe that's still on the table. Um, the two things that I think interest us today are acquiring a firm that has vertical experience,
Mhm.
that either reinforces ours and makes us a bigger player, or is something that we have a little bit of something in and we see it like that's an industry that's around the corner, and if we need to take advantage of this opportunity, so it'd be a vertical. And the other one would be um, uh, tactical, or a discipline. So um, if we needed to be a lot better at direct marketing and automation or whatever, then maybe, that's just an example, but and then somebody that really specializes in that, is successful, has proven expertise, maybe has some IP or whatever. Um, Whoever they are, wherever they are, is really irrelevant if they have that type of expertise. So to me, it's more vertical and more disciplined, that fills in gaps for us or helps
Mhm.
us get to where we think the future is, to say it generically.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate that. This was a very inspiring interview. It's great to connect with you. Where can people find you if they want to find out more about your
Yeah.
company and even take your behavior course
Okay.
if it's available?
So our name is not Six Marketing, it's VI Marketing and Branding. That's our website, vimarketingandbranding.com. By the way, our name originally was Visual Image Advertising. People called us VI. We wanted to take advertising out of our name a long time ago, for a particular reason, the one-way conversation that it entailed. So people call us VI, so we changed our name, VI Marketing and Branding. So, I'm Tim Berney, Berney on LinkedIn. Um, I post a lot of opinions there, and repost some of our agency's thought leadership type of work. And then my email is tberney@thevibrand.com, which is TBERNEY at thevibrand.com, or I can still use this one, tberney@vi.marketing. There's no .com at the end of that one. So, and I assume you can Google me and whatever. I have refused to Google myself for the last 10 years, so I don't know what shows up. But
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, you can Google him. I'll put his information in the show notes as well. So you'll have a link to his website and his LinkedIn. And yes, if you guys enjoyed this, feel free to like the video, share it with someone who you might think might find it inspiring as well or interesting. And thank you again for coming, Tim. I really appreciate the conversation.
yeah, same. I appreciate your thoughtful questions. I've been very much enjoyed myself.
Yeah, same.
All right. Thank you, Carly.